Gladys Louise Taylor, Dan Rosie of the B League, and now we're also joined by radiologist Jim. Oh boy, I forgot the last name already. I'm off to a great start.
Wow. Ferretti.
I wasn't ready.
Wow.
Dan was in the prep sheet. I was Dr. X. That was like I was kind of like a Bond villain. I thought that was great.
I had it that way, and I was like, I didn't know if I should like sound the word out, and I was like, and then I had it at Dr. Jim for a while, and I was like, that's pretty cool as well. And then I was like, no, I'll respect the educated guy in the room. We'll call him by his full name. That's on me. I'm sorry, Kyle. I set you up to fail there, mate.
So it's everyone's fault but Gladys's. So thanks for keeping us on afloat, Gladys.
That's how I like it.
Thanks, Kyle. The host with the most.
Yeah. So part of the segment we're going to start with now, having Jim come on, is talk injuries. And oh boy, for a little bit it looked like okay for the first bit of Sunday there weren't too many major injuries, and then kind of the end of the 1 o'clock games and 4 o'clock games, suddenly there's quite a long list here. So begin with a few quarterbacks here, but Drew Brees probably the biggest one.
Yeah, so with Drew, the story kind of evolved, which is not atypical for the NFL, right? It's like, yeah, he's fine. Maybe he bruised a rib. We're going to send him for a few more tests. Oh, he's got broken ribs. Oh, they're broken on both sides. Oh, they're broken, and he has a punctured lung. And by the way, he's been playing with broken ribs for a couple of weeks now. So, yeah. But what's the main story? The main story is that he's out for multiple weeks, and he may be done. Like, he may be done for the year. This is the type of injury that you see with people that get into car accidents. This is not like, a minor thing. And the punctured lung thing is a whole new layer to it. If you guys remember, Tyrod Taylor got his lung punctured by accident, getting a pain-killing shot, and we haven't seen him since. Now, Herbert had something to do with that. But it's no small injury, and it's not something that he's going to bounce back from. So this is the type of thing with Jameis Winston getting the keys to that offense. If you got room for him, like, he's one of those difference makers where he could be a top 10 guy for the rest of the way, potentially. And I think it's been underplayed a little bit how he could really add some value if you have room for him.
True or false? Drew Brees is the Santa Claus for backup quarterbacks.
That very well may be true. With between Hill and
see what I did there? And Teddy Bridgewater. See that segue?
Teddy Bridgewater, and
there we go.
There's more. There's many more. It's his whole career.
So Dan's on his game too, as is
next year. Yeah.
As is apparently the doc is on, as Hamid saying. So shout out to one of our brethren at Going for Two.
He's ready for everything.
There we go.
So so again, Brees seems like
not looking good there. Not looking good for massive understatement, but it's one of those things where if you need quarterback help, or even if you don't, to be honest with you, let's say you have somebody and he's kind of shaky. Jameis Winston would be a high priority for me because he can really do some damage with that offense. I mean, he's going to throw some picks. We know that. We know what he'll do. He was 30 for 30 the last time he was a starter in a bad way. But he drives the ball down the field. He is not afraid to throw the ball. And he's got some weapons. And here's the other thing. Could we finally see the resurgence of Michael Thomas now that he's been injured since week 1? He's finally back. Could he finally come out of the doldrums now that everybody's kind of forgotten about, the best wide receiver in the land, arguably, and have him really kind of start to make some noise now that he can run some deep routes and open up the route tree a little bit.
And even if he does stick into the slot, I mean, we saw Chris Godwin last year have tons of success with Jameis Winston primarily as a slot receiver too. So yeah, I do think no matter where Thomas lines up, he's going to be a solid option.
Good point.
If you have, here we go. So right now, Drew Brees, quarterback 14, right? If you had one of the following and you're making a push for the playoffs or you're in contention, would you rather Jameis Winston over Teddy Bridgewater? We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. Jameis.
Would you rather Jameis or Carson Wentz? Because that's the QB 12 right now. Jameis or Carson Wentz?
Jameis.
Jameis,
Would you rather Jameis or Lamar Jackson, QB 13?
Lamar
Jackson.
Okay, so Jameis or Joe Burrow, QB 15?
Burrow.
I think I agree. It's
Okay,
close,
so
it's close.
He did pretty well against the Steelers defense, so I think he's basically matchup proof now.
we can then go a little bit higher up. So instead of working back, QB 8 Matt Ryan, Jameis or Matt Ryan? Jameis plays Atlanta this week.
That'll be a dome no matter what, so it might be good for Ryan.
Then you're looking at Justin Herbert, QB 9, Ryan Tannehill, QB 10. Jameis is in that mix.
He's right
Yeah.
there.
He's right there.
That's what I'm
Straight
saying.
away.
He's right there.
Yeah. Like, and you're talking about like Carson Wentz QB 12 right now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so Jameis becomes basically an every week starter.
He does.
as we're talking about here. So
It's that madness.
Top
Unbelievable.
10 upside the rest of the way. As long as he's playing, it really doesn't matter who he's playing against. He's got top 10 upside the rest of the way.
So we tried to transition. Sorry, we've tried to transition to this a few times. Winston's upside can be compared to what Teddy Bridgewater did last year, as what Hamid's saying. So let's get to talk about Teddy. So here's a knee injury, MCL, tear, or sprain, but I guess they're both tears, so it doesn't really matter, right?
That was a sprain. Yeah. MCL sprain. But it's the same knee.
There's a couple of things with that I want to talk about. It gives me an opportunity to maybe educate a little bit. So sprains is basically they come in 3 flavors. It's kind of a misnomer: sprain versus tear, sprain or strain versus tear. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. You hear these terms get thrown around all the time. So grade 1, the most mild kind, that's one where you don't have an actual tear of the fibers. They're micro tears, so you can only see them on a microscopic level. So that's something where you can only see it on imaging with an MRI, and the fibers of the tendon, the ligament, the muscle are intact. A grade 2 is you actually have some partial tearing of the structure. So you lose some of those fibers or torn. And then the real misnomer, this one's one of my personal favorites. A grade 3 sprain is the same thing as a complete tear. So it's completely gone. It's ripped in half, and they say it's a grade 3 sprain. There isn't really anything worse than that. So it sounds a lot better than saying something's completely torn. But a grade 3 injury or a high grade 2 injury, usually that's a surgical case where you need to have surgery to repair it. It's not something that's going to heal on its own. In Teddy's case, the other thing that they said was that he's day-to-day. We hear this a lot, right? How many times have you guys heard that injury-wise? Such and such is day-to-day. And they use it for everything. He's, got a knee injury, he's day-to-day. He broke his clavicle, he's day-to-day. He got hit by a bus, he got struck by lightning, he's day-to-day. It doesn't really tell you anything. I'm day-to-day right now. I feel pretty good. Tomorrow's another day. We'll see what happens. So whenever you hear that, for the rest of your lives, if you take nothing away from this broadcast other than what I'm going to say to you right now, is when somebody is day-to-day, that means exactly 0. You're day-to-day, I'm day-to-day, everybody's day-to-day. It's what is behind that that tells you something. So in Teddy's case, I think this could go several ways. It looks like it's one of those things where they might be able to brace him up and he might be able to play. Mobility is not really part of his game. If it was Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, it might be a different story. But there's a decent chance that he could play this week. He may he may not, but he could. He could play very easily. So it may be one of those things where it's a tear, it's a sprain. It might sound worse than it actually is. In this case, it's conceivable he does play this week and plays well.
Is there any extra concern because it's on that leg that he had that really bad injury on? Is it the same leg, right?
That's what I heard. Is that right, Dan? Same leg?
Same leg. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, it's been a little like that was a really, really bad injury. Like, I mean,
How much worse could it get, right? That was
right.
so
I mean, they almost had
brutal.
to amputate his leg. So
Yeah.
this just the fact that it's on the same leg, it is kind of insult to injury or injury to injury, as it were. But I don't think it really makes a difference. Like whatever injury he had to that leg, like for all intents and purposes, it's healed, and this is just a new injury on top of it, and it's compared to what he had already, it's pretty minor, given the fact that his previous injury was what I would refer to as catastrophic. So
yeah, that was career-ending stuff before. That's all.
Really
that
dangerous,
was, and,
really scary stuff.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's insane, and it's good that it's. Again, we say this in jest. It's good that it's minor stuff that's happened to Bridgewater in jest. Like, I'm not trying to downplay that, but this could have been it for him. You hear Teddy Bridgewater and knee injury, and your mind automatically assumes he's done. So to know that this is what it is, and to know that he'll be back, that's a win right there.
Sorry, this adding insult to injury. This might be insult to just straight up. Apparently, Matt Patricia needs a pencil. You seem less prepared than Matt Patricia. That's not a good sign. Thank you, Jason, for that. I mean, B League, right? I mean, Matt Patricia's a B League coach, so that, or C League actually. That might be giving him too much credit. So kind of appropriate.
We aim for average, and Matt Patricia is certainly not that.
They did win though, so I mean, against a team, quite a team they beat.
Yeah, well,
that's harsh. I don't want to disparage anybody too bad, but if they make you the Matt Patricia of doctors, I think you lose your license. So, so.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Now, if I told you it's not the first time I've been called Matt Patricia, I would be lying though. I've heard that a few times. It's fine, ish.
If the Giants didn't win this week, would it be so fine? Like, are you just happy because the Giants won 24 hours ago?
Listen, man, he didn't call me Andy Reid, so we're all right. We're good.
At least Reed's got a ring. So, again, back to Sean's comment, day-to-day, right? A player that they said was day-to-day was Christian McCaffrey. Not only did he miss this week of Week 10, I guess it's still this week because we still are in Week 10, but it sounds like he's probably going to miss Week 11. So, Jim, what are your thoughts about Christian McCaffrey?
Well, Kyle, I'm glad you asked because I have a few thoughts. So, again, this is one of those things where the narrative changes, right? So he had his high ankle sprain back in, I think it was Week 2 or Week 3, and he's supposed to be out for maybe a week or two. And then 6 weeks later, he comes back and does Christian McCaffrey things, which is what we all want. Anybody that took him, we're accustomed to. Now he has a shoulder injury, an AC joint sprain specifically. This injury, I would say, over my fantasy career of doing injury analysis, is probably the one that is one of the most grossly underplayed injuries that you come across. Number one, it's really easy to miss it on an X-ray just because nothing's broken, nothing is really too far out of whack. The way that you find it is there's literally maybe 1 or 2 millimeters of widening of the joint. And the reason that is when you get an MRI, then you can really see it. The X-ray looks kind of not so bad, which is what they usually get at the site. And they say, oh, nothing's broken. It doesn't look too bad. We're talking about maybe 1 millimeter or 2 widening of the joint, because when you get the MRI, you look at it and it's like there's little ligaments that are in the joint that hold it together that are all torn. The cartilage can be torn. The whole thing is inflamed. It's really painful. It's really ugly. A good example, even this year, what we've seen of how this can play out is with Sam Darnold. And he had the exact same injury. And we saw what happened with him, or if you don't recall, he injured his shoulder. He was out for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. He tried to come back probably too soon, tried to gut it out for a couple of weeks. Didn't really look too good, even by Sam Darnold standards. I mean, he's a talented guy. What he has to work with is questionable. But then again, Joe Flacco went in there and
tore it up.
So was obviously trying to play through pain and then re-injures it. And God knows how long he's going to be out. They already ruled him out for this week, and he could be out for a lot longer. So the reality of the situation is, which is the sad truth, is he was supposed to be maybe not out last week. CMC, I mean. He was out. He was supposed to come back this week. They've already started laying the groundwork for him not playing this week on Monday. They have a bye in week 13. What are the chances if he misses week 11 that they bring him back for 1 week for them having to sit again, as opposed to have him sit week 12 and have a whole month off to actually maybe heal? That's the question that I ask. And I think that if he doesn't play this week, there's a really good chance he doesn't play next week. And even then, there's no guarantee that when he comes back in week 14, which is the playoffs, parenthetically, for most season-long players, he's at really high risk for getting injured again, because what is he going to do? They're going to hand him the ball, and then he's going to go out and get into 20 or 30 low-speed car crashes for over the course of 3 hours and get driven into the ground by really big, strong, fast guys, landing on that same injured shoulder. How's that land with all you guys?
Well,
Sorry if I can. We're also looking at the next 5 games for them, including that week 13 bye. Detroit, cash. Minnesota, that's cash.
Mm-hmm.
Denver, cash.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Kyle. Green Bay, week 15, cash. And you're looking at Washington, week 16 of your fantasy playoffs. That's
look what DeAndre Swift just did against them.
Yeah, like this is going to hurt everyone that has McCaffrey, and for those who let go of Mike Davis, this is brutal. Their season is toast, especially if Bridgewater is out for some time. I wouldn't be surprised if they ice him for the year. You've just paid this kid 80-odd mil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
80 mil for a running back? I mean, this is where we're at right now. If your quarterback's done and half your line is done and half your team is just cooked, ice McCaffrey. If in 2 weeks' time after you buy, you've come back and you're still 3-4 wins, there's no need to send him out there. He's your investment. I would not be surprised if we've seen the end of him for the year. I would not be surprised. They'd have to.
A real chance.
I'll go quickly on this for a moment. The Bears have the best record outside of playoff contenders at 5-4. If Carolina is only 2 wins off and they win the next 2 games, they are very well within their shot. They're there. But if they don't win the next 2 games and McCaffrey doesn't play the next, he's done for the year. I wouldn't be sending him out there. That's your investment. That's your star. You're not doing that.
Yeah, definitely a risk. And okay, so talk about Sam Darnold. We circle back to quarterbacks because you have one last one to talk on quick.
Yeah.
Drew Lock with the Broncos. So diagnosis here: muscle strain around ribs. So it seems somewhat different than with Breeze, but do you think there could be any similarities?
It sounds like he's, and again, like sometimes these things evolve and you just have to see what happens. If it's around the ribs and you're talking about your intercostal muscles, the muscles in between your ribs, I think he's got a reasonable chance that that's something he can play through. Sometimes I'm sure you've heard like they'll give guys a flak jacket or something to wear and they can kind of go out and gut it out. And it's more of a pain tolerance issue than it is anything structural. The problem with injuries up and around the shoulder, especially for a quarterback or anybody that has any kind of contact, is there's a lot of motion where you need that to propel the ball down the field. Mechanically, things don't work right. That hinders your performance. With an intercostal muscle strain or injury, it's just really painful. And these guys are pretty tough. So injuries that would knock me out for a prolonged period of time, they go out and play with. So I think it's something that he could play through. Whether or not they'll let him play through it or how his performance is, irrespective of the injury, may dictate whether or not he actually plays. But I'm not as concerned about it certainly not as concerned I am as Drew Brees, who might be done for the year. But I think there's a decent chance that they could run him out there, maybe give him a pain-killing shot or something, give him extra padding or extra protection, and just kind of let him try to gut it out.
All right, so I guess moving on position-wise, there's a few running backs here. So one is Joe Mixon, who's already missed. We're closing in on a month, I think now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys want to get to this or not, but I know we talked about Stafford at the top of the hour. We could touch on that real quick because there is some interesting stuff coming out of there as far as.
Actually, yeah. One last quarterback. Good point.
Okay. So Stafford, if you have Stafford, you're not out of the woods yet. So they got some X-rays on his thumb. The X-rays were negative. That's good. The problem is that, again, those pesky ligaments, right? They don't show up on X-rays so well. So just because he doesn't have a break there are a few ligaments in the thumb. Anybody who skis probably knows about this injury, skier's thumb or skier's injury, where you tear the ligaments in your thumb, and it can be a real problem, to say the least. They're not going to know if those are injured until he gets an MRI, which is pending. But the outcome kind of runs the gamut. He could be fine and play this week, and he just banged his thumb, and there's no injury. He could torn that ligament and have to put a brace on and be out for a few weeks. Or he could have torn it so bad that he needs surgery and could potentially be done for the year. And we're not going to know until the MRI comes back. So if you have Stafford, you can't. You have to have a backup plan at this point. You have to address that and make sure that you don't get left with empty pockets on Wednesday or Thursday when the MRI comes back and it's like, oh, look at that. The ligament's torn. He needs surgery. He's done for the year. And then the next thing you know, you're playing, somebody that you'd rather not be playing at quarterback this week.
I will say, I mean, with Stafford, there's been so many scares, right? There was the COVID list a couple weeks ago. Then he was in a concussion protocol. So yeah. I feel like Stafford, managers with Stafford on their team have probably already had backups needed because of that. And hopefully you've hung on to those players and haven't dropped them as soon as Stafford's available. So, yeah.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, last 3 injuries Stafford's had: 2011 hand-finger fracture, 2016 hand-finger dislocation, and last year was a back tailbone fracture. So this is a guy that's there's a bit of space in between the hand and finger work, but at the same time, we said this offline. This is the sort of thing that puts him on the IR. It's week 11. They did it last year. Stafford was on the IR last year around week 11. They iced Golladay. They iced Marvin Jones. When they know their season's done, they're done. Again, they're only 1 game out of playoff contention if Chicago lose. Technically two. But again, if they think they're done, this is another guy we're talking about that they could ice week 11, and that's it for your guys' team.
I feel like this year, though, there does seem to be more pressure on Matt Patricia to have to win, right? So if his job is on the line, he's probably going to say those guys can get healthy, they come back out. Not so concerned with the long-term future of this team if he's not involved with it. So,
well, again, remember he trotted out Kerryon Johnson week 16 last year after I think he had the MCL as well last year, right? So he's trotting out Kerryon Johnson when they're like 3-4 or 3-12 or something, with 2 games to go. It was absolutely unnecessary. Why?
So speaking of Patricia, I mean, Jason with the Patricia comment, which apparently Sean is calling the comment of the day, which I think we can all agree on. It's probably the comment of the series. I don't think there's anything better. But Jason does have a question for us. Down by 26 in a PPR league, need a moonshot. And you don't have to pardon the pun. I love it, Jason. Mooney or Robinson, assuming that's Allen Robinson. And there's, I think the only reason this may be a question is because of Allen Robinson's health. So, Jim, great to have you on for this question. What do you think about Allen Robinson this week?
Yeah, so the thing with Allen Robinson is, even for myself who follows this on a weekly basis, it's really hard to keep track of just what particular injury he's got going on at any given time. So what's the latest on him as far as what's his latest ailment? I love Allen Robinson, by the way, but God,
this is an Allen Robinson friendly zone. It just says knee. I just see knee.
Knee.
So Allen Robinson knee. That's all we have, but that's after a week. So
okay.
I'm guessing it's a Ben Roethlisberger type knee injury, and that's what we're rolling out. But
well, I'm gonna do a little research while we talk. But I'd say, and I'm gonna kick it to you guys and let you give your opinion. But I would say, are we even sure that Robinson is playing tonight for starters?
He's out there.
Yeah, he's playing.
Okay,
yeah,
all right, that's a good start with him.
And both Komet cleared he and Komet cleared the play. I'm all shook from the Matt Patricia garbage, but either way, I'd be glad to help you, Jason. Listen, if you need 20 or down by 26 in a PPR, the way that they've been playing, and we hear it going for 2 live on a Monday night. I've had the privilege of having the Bears, the preview already. It's been fantastic. But, the Bears and the Jets, we get lucky. You're looking at big plays. 26 points. I don't think Allen Robinson, I'm looking at the moment, I don't think he's had any 26-point weeks. He's had a 25.3 against Atlanta, 21 against Indianapolis, and since then he's had maybe an 18, 19-point game here or there. I'd have to double down on the point scoring, but I think that's about right. Allen Robinson's your safer play. He's going to get you 6-7 targets. He's going to get you 70-odd yards. So already you're looking at 14. If he hits one touchdown, you're within range. So I think we're all Allen Robinson fans here. He makes everyone look good. So he's a good shot. I think they're both in chance. This game, as the makings, we're going to get into it soon enough. This could be terrible or a blowout. It's like the Jets game last week. This could be anything, right? So Mooney has that big playability, but you need him to get, I think he had 10 targets last week, Darnell Mooney? He was reasonably used in a game. So Mooney can break those off and get those big plays. That's just not what they're doing with Allen Robinson at this point. And if you've watched any of the Bears play, it feels like he's not getting into the game until after halftime, which tells you he's probably having some words. So for me, it would be safer to go with Allen Robinson, but Mooney has that big playability. I lean Robinson myself. Did I buy you enough time? I think I did well.
Yeah, no, you did. You did a great job.
There we go.
Yeah, it's. I would say the thing with Robinson is, and maybe this is to your point as well. Just because he's playing, you still have the risk that he doesn't make it through the whole game. And if you need 26 points, you're probably going to need that. You're going to need him out there making plays and doing his thing. There's a decent chance that he either re-injures himself or he just tries to go out there, give it a go, takes a shot, and he's done for the rest of the game again. And then we get to play the whole charade again next week. I guess one of my things is when it comes down to player health, if you have a guy who's good and he's healthy versus a guy who's potentially elite and he's injured, the doctor always goes with the healthy guy, right? So I'd want to at least take a chance with the guy who, as of right now, football's a dangerous sport. Not to say that Mooney can't get lit up on the first play and be done, but at least going into it with what you know, he's got the best chance to finish the game, and given what we know now. So if you need that 26, you want the guy who's going to have the best chance to at least be out there the whole game. Not to say that Robinson couldn't do it. You're in a tough spot, but if put a gun to my head, I'd probably go with Mooney just because.
I'm probably going to go against doctor's orders simply because I just don't know that Mooney has the chance to get 26. I'm looking at his best game, 69 yards and a touchdown, 5 catches. And if Robinson's theoretically the more targets, he got 11 targets last week. But I just see Mooney scoring 26, whereas it might be tough for Robinson, maybe impossible today with the knee, but I think there's still a better chance in Robinson scoring it than Mooney. So I'll take the risk on Robinson.
Okay, that's totally reasonable. He certainly has the ability to do it.
I almost wonder if Dan, not to contradict you, but I almost wonder if Mooney has the better, safer floor just because we know he's healthy. And, the chance of Robinson, one play could be out, but I suppose any player has that.
That would lean to with what Jim was saying. I guess what isn't touched upon, and maybe Gladys will agree with me here, but if Allen Robinson is hurt and Mooney got 10 targets last week, you're playing Minnesota. That's got to be like that. There's no run game. They're rolling out Lamar Miller at some point today. That's what we know. I wish I was joking because we'll get to the overs unders on a few things. They can't run the ball for their life. They can't throw it very well. But at this point, if Robinson's really not there, you're really leaning on Anthony Miller and Jimmy Graham. That's what they have at the moment. So for a team that is never really, they play teams tight. Let's give Chicago some credit. They lean on their defense a lot more than what anything else is. But this is at a point where if Allen Robinson isn't right, and they're playing against Minnesota, who, as we know, they like to kill the clock, and Dalvin Cook is just clinical at this point. They're going to be playing catch-up at some point. Mooney's going to have to break something off, if that is in case Robinson isn't there. So I get either way. I think Allen Robinson is an animal, and I think he's that guy. But they're one game out of the playoffs. That's where they're at. They're 5-4, and I think the teams ahead of them are at 6-3. If Allen Robinson is out there, I think you got to play him. It's that time of the year. If one of them go for 26, it's going to be Robinson, I think.
Gladys, what do you think? Who would you play?
I would play Robinson. Robinson was, they had, someone asked him about packing it in, if the Bears were going to pack it in, and he's like, there's no reason for us to pack it in. We're 2 games out. There's no reason to panic. So Robinson wants to be out there. I think he's the safer option. I don't, like Dan said, it's knee. It's like that, the whole Patriots thing where everyone's hurt every week, but they're not really hurt, but they're on the injury report just in case. I don't think Robinson is injured enough that it's going to affect the way he plays. And like the doctor said, it's a chance anyone can get lit up at any time during the game. So for me, if he needs 26 is a lot of points, and I'm going against what I need because I have Mooney and I need like 30 points. I have Mooney and the Vikings defense tonight, and I need like a bunch of points, but I don't think I'm going to get it. So I'm going to go Robinson. Foles had 52 pass attempts last week, and Mooney had 2 more targets than Robinson did, and I think that was just gameplay. I think Robinson has the safer chance of getting 26, although I don't think he will get 26, but I'm almost certain Mooney won't get 26.
Yeah. Again, kind of in line with 2. So got a question.
One thing
Jim,
to throw in there. This will be educational for going forward, because Robinson's either really hurt or he isn't, and there is something that happens in games. I like to call it the Calvin Johnson principle. For those of you that remember, where basically Calvin Johnson would be playing on an injury that would have most people in the hospital. Like he was chronic, these high ankle sprains that eventually forced him to retire, and they basically said, "Listen, go out there, try to run in a straight line for the whole game, try to drill the defense." And he's starting, so you have Calvin Johnson and he's starting, you're playing him, but you get left with empty pockets because he's not really part of the game plan. He's kind of a decoy. So Allen Robinson is either healthy and he's going to go out and do what Allen Robinson can do, or he's going to be a decoy and he's not going to do much of anything, and we're going to find out. So one of those 2 things is true. It'd be interesting to see how it ends up being. I don't know which one of those is true. I don't think anybody does except Allen Robinson and maybe Nagy, although he's not calling the plays anymore. So that's it. So we'll find out. And it'll be interesting to see how much we can actually trust that going forward. So there's always a learning experience here, right?
This is also a guy that's had ACL issues in the past. So maybe this is their way of protecting him a little bit in some capacity. I don't know. But remember that took him. He was out for a while with that ACL. It felt like that anyhow, because when he came back, it took him a while to get going. If you remember, he was in Jacksonville, I think. So maybe they're just being a bit precautious. And you're right. This could be coach speak, or it could be all of the above.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of those situations where you just don't know until the game starts, and then you find out if you're right or not.
Yeah. So sorry, Jason. Take your best where you can. Hopefully, giving you the best information as possible. He did say level analysis earlier, though. I think I think that's more directed at you, Dan, more than anything. But hopefully, we kept that up and maintained that grade. I did want to get to Gabriel Rakowski's question real quick. What are the chances Graham scores 0?
This is quarterback.
It's Nick Foles.
Good.
For a bit anyway. There's only been one. So the Giants game, actually, Graham got 1 target. Outside of that, he's had 5 targets every game. I think, especially if Robinson goes out, I think that's virtually 0% chance that he scores 0. But even with Robinson in, I think it's a pretty low percent. Like maybe 10%. That might be too much. I think Graham's at least going to get enough targets to score something. I don't know if it's really high. I mean, he's been getting a lot of red zone targets. You'd like to see that from a tight end. Sounds like Jason's also going to go with Robinson. So hopefully Gabriel, we said. Gladys, what do you think? Do you think there's a chance Graham scores 0?
No. Is it PPR? I think he'll score. He's touchdown dependent, and he has 1 touchdown last week, but I think that was the first touchdown he's had in like 5 games. They do target him in the red zone. Unfortunately, it's not production that he's getting. He's just getting the targets. He's not hauling in the catches. Minnesota's secondary is starting to improve. I mean, they're a mess. Their defense is a dumpster fire, but they're not as much a dumpster fire as they were at the beginning of the season. I just don't Foles. I don't trust Foles. I mean, if Trubisky comes in, Graham's going to score points. If Foles stays in, I think there's a chance that he doesn't score any, unless it's a PPR league.
Sullivan's saying there's a 16.67% chance. I think Sean's on Darnell Mooney there, so I think that's why I think all that production is going to the wide receivers. So Jim, I did want to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think the better question might be what are the chances that Nick Foles runs the Philly special again and Jimmy Graham throws a touchdown to Nick Foles?
It wouldn't count as 0. That's 4 points.
Exactly.
At least.
Anyway.
I feel like Trey Burton's been undersold on all this. Now that we've gone back over this and we've seen what Foles really is over the last 2 years, I really feel like Trey Burton has been not given the credit due.
Although the Bears did try that out, and I don't know that it worked. So
I feel bad for Trey Burton, although he did get paid a lot by the Bears a few years ago. So whatever, he got. Yeah.
Did want to quickly ask about quickly a couple star players, Joe Mixon and Kenny Golladay. Both have missed time throughout the season. I know Galladay's been a couple injuries. Mixon still with his foot injury. It's been almost a month. So Jim, what do you think about either of those players?
Yeah. So that's really really good question. So Mixon, here's something for everybody out there who's watching that you can take forward. Anytime you hear foot injury associated with fantasy football, you need to immediately think about our old friend, the Liz Frank injury. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's this little ligament in the foot that really isn't that important, except for the fact that it kind of holds the whole foot together. So when that gets injured, and when it gets torn, it's basically half of your foot kind of starts sliding this way and half of your foot kind of starts sliding that way. And that, if it sounds bad, that's because it is. And we don't know what at least I don't know as of right now what the actual nature of Mixon's injury is, but he's been out for at least a month. From what I've read, he hasn't come close to practicing yet. It already looks like he's going to be out again. And I was starting to worry about a Liz Frank injury weeks ago. And the more time that passes without him actually being able to do anything, I get more and more worried that that's what he's dealing with, which is not to say that it's the end of days scenario for him, but I need to see him practice and getting back on the field before I could even start to think about him playing again. And we haven't seen that. So with Mixon, until further notice, you have to assume he's going to be out until you see him actually start to do something. And then that's the bad news. Here's the worst news. When he does come back, he's still at increased risk of injuring it again or injuring it worse. And if he tears it completely, it's a surgical case and he's done for the year.
And how much will that also hinder his production? Even if it doesn't re-injure it, will it still affect his burst? Getting off the line, but getting his routed. Is that going to affect that?
It's a painful injury. Aside from it being a really important structure, it just really hurts to walk on it, much less run and cut and do all the amazing things that Joe Mixon does that make him such a great player. So in a certain sense, you have to really appreciate the fact that a lot of these guys try to go out and play on injuries that most people wouldn't be able to walk on. But the body can only do so much. And you really have to ask the question, if Joe Mixon's out there and he's at 30% and he's just kind of running in a straight line, is he really helping the team? Is he really helping his team? Is he helping himself? And is he helping you as a fantasy player? I would need to see, even if he came back and he played, I would need to see him, before I started him, I would need to see him play and actually do things that he does, and have a Joe Mixon type game, what you drafted him for, before I would trust putting him back out there. So that's a lot of steps before you get to the point where you can use him again.
And then I guess quickly, Kenny Golladay with the hip injury, what's the expectations on him?
Yeah. When he first got injured, if you recall, we talked about day to day not meaning anything. So he was initially given the week to week designation, which when you're given that right away, that's almost universally bad. And I still haven't seen what the actual nature of the injury is. I just know that he's been out for like a month. And it kind of plays into, his teammate, Danny Amendola, went out with a hip injury, and nobody has details as to what that is yet. But there could be a break in the bone. There could be torn cartilage. All the muscles that are around the hip, they could be injured. It's the same thing until I start seeing some kind of production, some kind of practice. Then I can't assume that he's going to play. And then even if he did come back and play, I wouldn't play him until he got at least one game under his belt where I saw him doing something that resembled stuff that Kenny Golladay can do. So again, a lot of levels before you could even start to trust that. And then there's the specter of Detroit falling out of it completely and just deciding to shut him down for the rest of the year. And the same thing goes with Mixon.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, that team even weird right now than what the Lions have, and that division race is nowhere near as close. What with the 9 game? Here you go, Gladys. Mentioned it again. There's the quote. We have to mention it 9 times apparently. So, and we could shout it a million times. Thank you very much, Jim, for joining us. Appreciate the insight that you brought to this segment.
Absolutely. Before I go, I just want to leave you guys with one thing. A little tip for the guys that are playing here, that have tuned in. That I really appreciate. The situation in Jacksonville, kind of something that's running under the radar. So Chris Thompson is out with a concussion. They put him on IR. He's out for 3 weeks. When you're thinking about things going forward, James Robinson is there. He's the bell cow. He's the beast, and that leaves the 2 Ds, Dare and Divine, fighting for table scraps right now. However, if this week something happens to James Robinson, those 2 guys become very, very interesting going into week 12. So when waiver week and you have an empty roster spot, or you got a place where you could stick somebody in there, those are guys where you kind of are thinking, not this week, but thinking for next week, could this be something where I could get one of these guys cheap? Something happens to James Robinson, all of a sudden now you've got some real valuable a player to plug in 2 weeks down the road, where you wouldn't have had anything for that. It shouldn't be high demand. And if nothing happens to James Robinson, then you can get away from it, or you can play it again going into week 13. And that's kind of how the injury game is played. Try to anticipate, see where there's potential to get guys on the cheap that can fill in a spot for you a couple weeks down the road. Because football is a war of attrition. We know that, right? And so you want healthy bodies, but you can't think too far ahead. How many times have you had a team that looked like a beast, and then 2 weeks later you're decimated with injuries and it's a shell of what it was? Some other way to protect yourself from that is to kind of think ahead. Who's on a bye? Who's potentially somebody that would be valuable 2 weeks from now if somebody else were to get hurt? So I will leave you.
Running backs too.
Yeah, I will leave you guys with that. I really appreciate you guys having me on and taking the time. This was a lot of fun. I hope we can do it again. For anybody that's out there that tuned in to watch, this isn't going out anywhere else. So you guys got the exclusive content. I don't Twitter blast this afterwards. This is for you guys. So if I can reach out at any time, find me on Twitter at TFSDoc, or shoot me an email, thedoc@thefantasysportsdoc.com. And, I'm happy to ask questions. It's something maybe we can carry forward. If any good questions get asked, it might be food for thought or food for conversation next week. But thank you guys very much. And good luck to everybody this week. I really hope that Allen Robinson goes out and gets 4 touchdowns and brings home the W. And Mooney as well for you, Gladys. I hope the Bears win 97-7.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thanks, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. So Monday night, and I mean, there's a few things to touch on quickly. Monday night, David Montgomery's out, or Smith's out. So what do we expect from this run night for the Bears? Really, let's start with that. I mean, I have no idea who's going to be carrying the rock for them.
So let me, if I can, I'm going to jump in here for a second. I was looking for overs, unders for this game, and nothing on BUSR for the Bears run game. Nothing. I was like, Cordarrelle Patterson, maybe. I had to go to another site to find Ryan Nall for 28.5 rushing yards. That's where they're at. So if we're talking rush game, what, it's Cordarrelle Patterson, and it might be like a jet sweep here or there. That's what we're talking.
So, Nick Foles, are we expecting him to throw 60 times even if they're in the lead?
He's gonna have to. He's gonna have to.
If they're in the lead. Yeah. He threw 55 times last week. I mean, yeah, I think that they are going to have to toss the ball. Or didn't they bring in a linebacker last week to rush? Didn't Mingo rush for one rushing attempt last week?
What?
Yeah, so Barcavius Mingo.
Oh, it was a trick play from a punt.
Dude.
I don't let it happen, yeah.
I mean,
was that their most productive run of the day?
Their best running back isn't playing tonight, and it's a shame because he's not a very good quarterback either, but Trubisky could get him 40 yards a week at this point. But as we'll get to it a little bit later, Jordan Howard was released today by Miami, and he was a former Bear. And if the Bears are in the hunt, you would think that both people would put their pride aside and get forward with this, because concussions ain't nothing to mess with. And Jordan Howard, he's better than what he's shown in Miami. I think we can all agree. He might not be great, but he's serviceable. And right now they're relying on Lamar Miller, Ryan Nall, and Cordarrelle Patterson. So the alternative is elsewhere, I think. And this is what they have. But, we're talking about – I mean, Jim just pointed on that Matt Nagy just gave up play calling to Bill Lazor, who's now coaching a game or calling a game without a running back. So this could be
I do wonder. I mean, we've seen Lamar Miller be really productive in his career, and I think if he's given the chance, I mean, I think he could go off. But is he going to get the chance tonight? It seems like it's really the question. It seems like the USR isn't really wanting to put it out there. Get on anything. Want to. Put anything out because like anything could so easily hit the under, but they're afraid of going too low because then one run and it's over. So, yeah, really was money on the game, and it seemed, Dan, you mentioned this. Apparently the line today was just moving up and down. Like it seems like Vegas just has no idea what to expect at this game.
It was so at one point I saw both teams, we'll call it for what it is. They had the Vikings as 3.5 favorites. At one point, it was a 4-point favorite. Yesterday, it came down to at 10 o'clock this morning to 3-point favorites, and they're back out to 3.5. The OU has moved from around 43 back up to 44.5. It was at 43.5 for most of today. So, this could be it. Today could be wild. This could be like we said last week. Last week's Jets game was going to be something that we looked at and went, this could be a crazy game where everything goes over and the quarterbacks do nothing and Flacco smashed by halftime. And we were kind of we laughed, but he was there. We were kind of on the money, but this one here, like if Lamar Miller is average and he can get you to 54 rushing yards, that's what they have right now. You're hoping for him and some trickery from Patterson, Mingo, and Ryan Nall as well. And Ryan Nall's a capable pass-catching back out of Oregon. He's fine, but he's fine. And they need him to be okay. And if him and Lamar Miller can be okay, and maybe like the whole element of surprises in this too. Like if no one really knows what's coming from them in that regard, it's going to be tough. They could end up doing a little bit more. Like I don't want to revert everything back to the Giants, but I can. When the Giants at the start, Devontae Freeman. It's just easier to relate that way. But like the Giants were rolling out Alfred Morris, and he's been getting like 7 yards a carry. Alfred Morris, like, come on, this is these running backs who are experienced that they can get a job done. But this is, And the Vikings, if you had said to me today, like who's got the higher position on the ladder, Minnesota or Chicago, I would have probably not blinked and said Minnesota. They have the 3 wins this year. So it's not like they're doing that great where like an average running back can't be okay. This could be anything.
We'll say it does seem like, the Vikings defense has been better against the run than they have against the pass. They've just been absolutely atrocious, and it's a really young secondary that's part of it. So it does set up well that the thing that the Vikings do the worst, which is defend wide receivers, is something that the Bears have right now with 3 of them really between Anthony Miller, Allen Robinson, and Darnell Mooney. That could really exploit this defense. So it might be one of those things where they may decide just not to run at all because they don't have the personnel. It's the best way to attack this Vikings team. But being said, certainly I think the Vikings offense right now more cohesive, even if the quarterback play of Kirk Cousins isn't necessarily that great. I think he's been playing better than Nick Foles and Trubisky, right? I think he's the better back in this game, right? Unfortunately, though, he's also like the worst Monday night quarterback ever, or just prime 9. Is that 0-9 on Monday or just 0-9 prime time? Monday, just 0-9, and so specifically Monday, he's been brutal. So so the Vikings will not pass the ball, and the Bears won't run the ball.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this could be
I think they have to pass the ball. I don't think
the Vikings really hope that they're not losing because they really don't want to have to pass.
I think I agree with Dan. I think this game is going to be one of those games where both teams just start passing the ball because I think the Bears can hold Dalvin Cook down. I have faith in the Bears front seven. Khalil Mack is like the second best, according to Pro Football Focus, rushing defender against the rush. And as far as being the best quarterback, Kirk Cousins, he has the best running back. I don't think Cousins is the best quarterback. I think he had the best running back, and Cook is like taking Cousins' butt out of the fire, so to speak, because he's been so good the last 2 weeks that everyone's like, oh my God, this team is so much better. They're letting Dalvin Cook run, and they're not depending on Kirk Cousins to throw the ball.
So I guess we start getting into some of these props right off the bat. So Dalvin Cook's rush yards at 89.5. So Gladys, you're saying under that?
No, I think he'll get 100.
Okay.
I think he'll get 100. I don't think he'll see a touchdown. I think he'll get 100 yards, no touchdown. So I would go over Dalvin Cook because they're going to feed him the ball regardless. Zimmer's going to feed him the ball regardless. So he's going to have like 50 carries. Surely he can get like 89 yards and 50 carries.
And I love for Cook. What I really like is the receptions and the receiving yards. 2.5 receptions, 22.5 receiving yards. I think that easy. Right?
Yeah, I would go with that.
Yeah, I actually liked in terms of the rush game. I liked Alexander Madison at 25.5 yards. I kind of feel like you're right. Like this, that's there for him to come and spell Cook at some point. And I think Madison at 25.5 is probably right on the money as well. But he'll
probably get it.
Sorry, there are a lot of things in this game that could be anything, and that's right up there with it. Madison coming in, taking a spell. I think that's a chance.
I think Madison will get enough opportunity, but as the Bears really great run defense, so does he have enough efficiency on those somewhat what are we thinking, like 6 carries, 7 carries?
I think Madison is at his average. His rushing average per game is so low that he's going to have to get like 10 carries in order to.
I don't think he'll get his chance. I think that he'll get his chance in that regard. But you're right. Like I think I said it before, Chicago held Derrick Henry to like 68 yards. So I mean, they're if there's anyone more than capable of playing into Dalvin Cook and bringing him down a little bit, it's him. It's him. It's them. Sorry. I just saw Allen Robinson. He looks like he's good to go. So.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, play Robinson, Jason.
Sorry, while we were going before, I don't want to distract you guys, but like news was breaking about Antonio Brown reportedly destroying a camera in October. That was the news that flashed before, and I kind of lost it a little bit. It was just, of course he did. Why wouldn't he break the camera in October? It's about right.
Such pressing news that we needed to hear. So he talked about the running game. How about this passing game? So we've got both quarterbacks at 1.5 touchdowns, which I'm not really crazy about either. I know both defenses could be pretty good, but specifically what we've been saying about the run game, I think the yards is where it's at here. So we've got Cousins at 225 and a half yards. Foles is at 266 and a half.
Foles has gone over. He doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice. For them to win this game, he's got to go well over. He has to. They aren't running on anyone. So, this is where we were talking about the questions that we were getting before. Like, the Bears can't run. They can't run for their life at this point. He's going to be chucking it 50 times again. This is going to happen. So, for all the Bears, like skilled players, Robertson, Mooney, Miller, even Cole Kmet, if he's ready to go, Jimmy Graham, they're all a chance today. They're all very much a chance to smash. And if that happens, Foles is probably going to hit over as well.
Gladys, between the two quarterbacks, which one do you prefer?
I just because he has to, Foles will go at least a push. I mean, he's going to have to get 200, 300 yards to win this game. Do I think they're going to win this game? New play caller who, needs to excel. He knows he doesn't have a run game. Foles is going to be airing it out. I mean, what else are they going to do? Seriously. Well, even Nall, when he played last week, had more targets than rushes. I mean, they're going to throw it to him even if he lines up in the backfield. So Foles, I like. Cousins, no. I think, like I said, I think they're just going to try to stuff the ball with Dalvin Cook and just keep going until it's too late and they realize it's too late. So I don't think Cousins is going to hit. What was it, 240, 220?
225 and a half. So yes, 226.
He had 220 last game, and Cook had all those rushing yards. But no, I don't think – I like Foles. I would go with the Foles, but I would be hesitant to go with the Cousins. But again, I think it's going to be a passing game. So, yay on both.
I kind of agree with that last statement. I do like both, actually. And I think they're giving enough of a discount on Cousins, pushing it all the way down to 226, 225 and a half.
It's so vague, though, for Cousins because 225 and a half is two top receivers. They've got capped at under 60, if that makes sense. They're saying that both Thielen and Jefferson at 4.5 receptions each, and Thielen at 59.5, Jefferson 57.5. That's making up for maybe close to half of the total that Cousins needs to get through. You're banking on Dalvin Cook maybe getting, it's got to come from somewhere. Chad Beebe or Labisi Johnson. It's going to be Kyle Rudolph. That's what you're hoping. You're hoping that those guys pick up chunks to get something done. Tajay Sharp. You're hoping that those guys come out of nowhere and get something done. They've got Kyle Rudolph here. I've said it before, 26.5 yards, 2.5 receptions. That's what they have for their number 3 receiving option. And if that's the case, we were talking about it last week with that Jets game. It doesn't feel like the math adds up, but somehow Flacco smashes. This is what's going to happen. So Cousins could well get there. I don't know. And look, I've written it just up here before. Chicago's allowed 3 straight touchdowns to tight ends. Week. Bang, bang, bang. So this could be out of nowhere. Kyle Rudolph pops for 60 yards. That could end up happening. This is that sort of game where out of nowhere, we mentioned it last week. On these Monday nights, someone out of nowhere turns up and gets something done. And for Kirk Cousins to hit 225, it's got to be Rudolph. It's got to be BC Johnson. And someone has to really smash. And Chicago, they aren't letting anyone in the air. They're really stingy. And what, Minnesota? They have the second worst passing offense attempts in terms of attempts.
Well, Cousins is 27th out of 32nd out of 32 quarterbacks. Cousins is 27th in passing attempts.
The last most passing attempts in the league. Chicago, the 3rd most passing attempts. So we're hoping that the team with the least amount of passing attempts per week out of a sudden start pumping on a team that really contains wide receivers. It's going to be Cousins going to have to do something that we haven't seen in a while.
I think that Rudolph's production was hampered too by Irv Smith, even though Smith wasn't getting that much targets, but they're both on the field at the same time. With Rudolph being on the field by himself, I think it's going to be a lot of Rudolph and a lot of Jefferson.
And I was just going to ask about those props. I mean, so we get Thielen and Jefferson both at 4.5 catches, 59.5 yards for Thielen, 57.5 for Jefferson. Rudolph's at 2.5, 26.5 yards. Rudolph's my favorite, but I could theoretically, just like last week, go over on all of them, right? Is there any case to make? I think it's tough to go under on any of them.
Yeah, I would go over on all of them. They're going to have to win the game.
So Scott 2 times has 3 comments here. It's one too many according to the name. I got you, Scott. But Bears for all the money is saying at plus 3.5 is free. So going down, people go shop for that line, find that line somewhere right now. So clearly faith in the Bears.
Like 44.5. Like it's like the Bears are going to have to throw it to get to 44.5. What faith do you have in either of them? Man, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one play out.
I just want to put this comment back because I got to pencil that in. But yeah, because I do actually think the Vikings will win this.
Wow.
Hasn't Chicago owned Minnesota and Chicago?
So we have it here. They have won 4 times in, where have I got this? Since 2000, Vikings are 4-16 on the road to Chicago.
Yeah.
There you go.
Kirk Cousins is 0-9 on Mondays. So
that's true.
It's not looking good. It's looking good. But I will say this. I want to look forward. I don't want to take over here for a second. I just want to look forward. Minnesota have won 2 straight. Chicago's lost 3 straight. All right. Minnesota, if they can win, they then face Dallas, Carolina, and Jacksonville. And again, the only team that's in playoff contention that isn't in the wild card spot is Chicago at 5-4. So this would then bring Minnesota a game back from Chicago with a divisional win, and they beat Green Bay as well. I think they split that, right? So
yeah,
we're talking about Minnesota playing, I think, Detroit twice over that span, and then they've got Carolina without Teddy Bridgewater, probably Dallas, who are terrible, and Jacksonville, who they're an anomaly. So at this point, we're talking about Minnesota possibly being on a 5-game streak. So 3-5 to 8-5 is a very big possibility for Minnesota if they can get today. I'll say that much.
Truth is, Chicago, I mean, they've beaten Tampa and some wins that they maybe shouldn't have. I mean, everyone comes back and beats the Falcons. Everyone deserves that one, apparently. But maybe this is, I guess, no run game, all this adversity they're facing, kind of almost telegraphed to always passing, and the Vikings could kind of set their defense up that way. But again, maybe that is the best way to beat them. So, yeah, home underdogs, right? Home underdogs in the under. How do you want to pick under on a 44.5?
Home underdogs in the overs every time.
Oh, and the overs,
Also,
not the under. Sorry.
And the overs every time.
That's why I'm a better. better. Better get a better.
Listen, this again, like we didn't think last week would be entertaining, and then we also thought it could have been an absolute mess to be entertaining. Tonight's that. This could be brutal, and it could be amazing at the same time. We'll see.
So we were talking about Robinson, 72 yards. Is his over under, which is significantly higher than anyone else in this game. I got Mooney at 3.5 catches, 42.5 yards, and then Jimmy Graham at 3.5 catches, 33.5 yards. So any favorites between receivers?
I like Mooney. Mooney at 3.5 and 42.5. I like that. He's been looking good. He's been awfully impressive this year. He's got. We'll give the shout out to our Steelers again, right? The collective Steelers. He's got that. I don't like player comparisons. I suck at player comps, but like he feels like he's breaking late, like Deontay Johnson did last year. Like Johnson came on the more and more the season went. I kind of like how he progressed. I'm a big Deontay Johnson fan, and I feel like Mooney is kind of bringing that along as the year goes on. Like for him to punch out 10 targets as a rookie, that's a big deal. Like not a lot of it. Like okay, CD Lamb with. Like, Ruggs doing that, right? Like that ain't happening. It's not a lot of those guys. Mooney's kind of coming along very well in a team that has to throw the ball. And I think Mooney at 42.5 and 3.5 is, I think it's on. I think it's on. I kind of like it. I think he's going to have a big game.
Yeah, with Graham, 3.5 maybe concerned. I mean, I'm looking at it. He's only had over 3 catches 5 times this year. Sorry, 4 times this year. So it's basically a 50-50 chance of him getting that 3.5. I do like it for 33.5 yards just because. Do I actually? Are the Vikings that vulnerable to tight ends? I guess they're more vulnerable to wide receivers. So, yeah, I guess I don't like the odds of Graham finishing 0, but yeah, those are tough lines actually. Thinking about it, I think the 33.5 maybe a bit more tempting than the 3.5. Yeah, I think that also speaks to how good Mooney is. Gladys, what do you think?
I kind of have to excuse myself because I so need Mooney to have a good night, and I so want him to have a good night. But I like Robinson's numbers. I think Robinson is going to. What was that?
I like it.
I think Robinson's going over. I really do. The only one I'm not really sure of is Graham. Mooney and Robinson, I think, are good to go. Graham, I'm not so sure. I wouldn't go on that one. He's only had, 1, 2, 3 in the last 4 games? But he's had like 5 receptions. 5, 5, 2, and 6. I like the number. I don't like the yards. How about that?
That seems to be where everyone's at.
Yeah, I like the number. I don't like the yards.
I said the opposite. I don't like the catches. I actually prefer the yards. But I think if there's a tight end pick, I'd rather go with Rudolph. I much prefer Rudolph to Graham. The one last catch, it's only less yards, but I think if their numbers were equal, take Rudolph in this game. Their game without Irv Smith. So give me the lower tight end. I think so. Okay, quick question for the two of you then. Out of the 6 receivers that we've mentioned, who's your favorite? Because mine is Rudolph, actually, even over Robinson and Mooney. I think if I had to pick one from either team, I'd go with Rudolph over on both of his.
I'm going Mooney. I kind of feel like they're asking him to come out with, and just quietly, BUSR didn't have at the time Allen Robinson receptions, so I went elsewhere to look for it. They had him down for 5.5 receptions, which seems like that should happen quite easily.
Yeah.
However, Darnell Mooney to get 4 receptions and 42 yards, he could get the yards off one play. So that's where I'm at with Mooney. So the yards he could cook straight off the bat, and then he could, especially looking at that, like if any case where Chicago have to hurry up, which is especially with how Minnesota kill the clock, they might need quick plays. They might have to play a bit more urgent than what it seems, because as we know, Minnesota will go for 15 minutes and take a field goal because they're the worst. But that's within the possibility. If that's the case and they need points quickly, then Mooney could be in play. Same with Miller. I kind of like it's hard not to like anything that Chicago's offering except for maybe Graham. The third most passing attempts in the league, and that was prior to this weekend. So they might have. That's insane that they have to do that with Foles or Trubisky.
I mean, I guess they've been used to not running the football. Then clearly.
Yeah. Well.
So maybe they won't be so affected by losing the run game. So maybe they actually will win this. Maybe I should reverse what I was saying earlier.
Fickle Kyle.
Yeah. Well, I want both to lose. Can they both have losses somehow? NFC North.
A tie.
Oh, that's very.
No, I want both losses. I don't want ties. No. Yeah.
I don't like your chances there, pal.
All right. So, so that's our Monday night preview. Did either of you want to mention anything else about Monday? Either player props, the over/under line, anything?
I just want to know let's find out who we have to deal with next week, because if we have to deal with another Jets or Bears game, I don't know. You might be finding out.
I appreciate all the comments, Scott. So thanks for stopping by.
We can do one next week. Rams Buccaneers next week. Ooh. So that'll be a fun.
Yeah.
At 10. So that'll be cool. So
just to recap quickly through Sunday, what's what occurred. Dan, you had two questions quickly, and I actually do think some pertinence, especially with this first one, to fantasy. So Hawkinson quietly a top 3 tight end for Dynasty. I don't think he's that far off.
How can he not be? It's weird because like you look at how it feels like this year he's come along and no one's spoken about him. And in DFS, he's hit that 4.5, 5K range every week.
Went up a little bit this week just because the big guns were out.
Yeah, but George Kittle is always hurt. Mark Andrews has been stinking. Darren Waller has been right there with him. And it's one of those weird things where, like, I feel like everyone thought the step that a tight end was going to make this year was Dallas Goedert, right? But it feels like there hasn't been another tight end this year that's gone close to doing what Travis Kelce does. Hawkinson this year, Kittle's always hurt. Let's put our cards on the table here. He's not healthy. He's always getting banged up. This is a thing. Like, Hawkinson has to be close to that top 2, top 3. And I know Hawkinson hasn't been a beacon of health.
Yeah.
But at this point, like, it's not that. It's not like I'm missing 8, 9 games in a row. So I don't know. Maybe you guys.
The problem with Hawkinson is, I mean, like this week, this was supposed to be okay. Galladay's gone. You're the alpha now.
This was meant to be a smash.
And he was the 4th receiver on the team. So that's concerning to me. And that's going to be something where I honestly, but my top 2 dynasty redraft, doesn't matter what it is, tight ends are still Kelce, Kittle in that order. No one's really stepped up in Kittle's absence this year. No one's really stepped up to show that they could be that consistent every week guy. So
Darren Waller is there, and that's the thing. Like, going back over it, I completely whiffed on Waller this year. I thought, it's a 1-year thing, and they'll move on. They brought in Witt, and they brought in Fabian Moreau look to take the next step. I whiffed him. Waller has been ridiculous. He's going to surpass what he did last year. I think he's almost there.
I think he's already got the touchdowns, because that was the one thing. He had the big yardage, but so few touchdowns, which was good to see from a production standpoint, consistency like that.
He's already passed last year's touchdown. He had 3. He's at 4 now, I believe. So he's already passed that. And we're only, we got like 6, 7 games to go, and the Raiders are flying.
Yeah.
So Waller's got to be close with Hawkinson to that top 2, top 3. And I know Waller's a bit older, but he doesn't have the miles on him either.
That's true. And I still like Jonnu Smith. I think the start of the year, the tear he was on is the, to quote you, Dan, it's the only thing that we've seen come close to Kelce. That was even then, that was only 3 games. And that's about the closest anyone's came to really saying, yeah, they could stand up next to him. Even Kittle this year hasn't really done anything to kind of show. So with, the age, I'd still, my top 3, I think I'd go Kelce, Kittle, Waller.
Wow.
And then 4 or 5, it's Andrews, Hawkinson for me probably, and then so I could say maybe top 4 for Hawk. I just still haven't quite seen it yet, and as you mentioned, Waller's still young enough that he's not too old yet to discount him. I think. Gladys, what's your top 3 for Dynasty?
Dynasty, I like Hunter Henry. He hasn't produced, but he's in an offense that it would be a miracle if he doesn't produce as much as Ertz putting up the ball. Yeah. So I would go Kelce, Henry, Kittle. He's like a delicate flower, and that would take him off. Hawkinson, like you said, he should have had a smash. This should have been the week that he produced, and he ended up with like 20-something yards and 3 catches or something really weird. So I wouldn't go with him. I like Jonnu Smith. I think that in that offense, that he is probably next to Henry, second in line for the alpha dog role, and Tannehill likes him. So it's unconventional, I think, and I don't really play Dynasty, so that might be part of it, but I would go Kelce, Hunter Henry, and Jonnu Smith.
Wow, I love it. I thought I was the most bullish person ever on Jonnu Smith. Even that's a little high for me. But so one concern about Henry, he's playing on the franchise tag with uncertainty on where he'll be next year. So you don't seem too nervous, Gladys. Obviously,
no. As much as people need tight ends, he's good. I mean, he's good. I understand Keenan Allen is just taking over the target share from Justin Herbert. So Henry is the odd man out. But he's good. And
Henry, I think, is going to come on as the year goes. He's out there. He's out there all the time.
Yeah. 95% of the snaps basically every week.
I've said it this week. We're talking about we don't talk about Keenan Allen enough.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem. Keenan Allen's having
great year. He's
going to smash his career year of 2017. He was the wide receiver 3 when that happened.
Maybe getting the best quarterback he's ever had maybe helps.
Well, sure, but I mean, at this point,
just love making fun of Philip Rivers.
Yeah, it's like it's beating a dead horse, but like 2017 with Allen still probably had Antonio Gates, right? Henry would have been in and around, and they would have had an okay team that was in there too. But Keenan Allen's having a crazy year, and that's come at the detriment of Henry. But Henry, he scored his first touchdown in feels like forever this week. He's going to come on as the year goes. For me, I agree with you too. AJ Brown has to be in that top 3, top 4 conversation. I think Hawkinson's already in the top 3. Mark Andrews gone kaput. Godet's there as well. And again, homerism, it has to be. Giants did pick up Evan Ingram's option at the start of the year. We know where he's going to be next year for now. We know he's got a quarterback that's not playing too bad. So that goes without saying. And obviously, Irv Smith tonight. We haven't spoken about him. He seems to have looked okay. It's a shame he's in Minnesota. We said that since he got drafted there. But, we have to talk about A.J. Brown and not A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith as if he is – oh, there we go. First pass, quarter roll. That's Dalvin Cook. Nick Foles. Kirk Cousins just tried to kill him. Very good. Awesome.
Oh, okay.
He's teardropped one over to him, and he just got absolutely eaten. Very good. Well,
all right. So now, quicker. Drew Lock or Vic Fangio? Who's the first to go? I say. Well, I wonder if it's complete clean house. New quarterback, new coach, new president, new everything. And so I actually think it's a tie. I think it's everything fresh start for Denver next year. Maybe Fangio survives it just because, if the blame is on Elway for not providing a proper quarterback, how can you put that on Fangio? Ownership might side with, let's get someone who'll get you a quarterback, at least we hope. But I got a sense it's going to just be complete new team entirely.
I think the problem out here is with the fluctuation in ownership, like the fight over who's going to control the team. And John Elway is such an icon to the people in Denver, which is why he's been allowed to stay, even though he is horrendous in the draft. He's had maybe 2 good picks. I think after this season, because this was supposed to be a really good season. I mean, even everyone has injuries, everyone has COVID, but during the draft, when they drafted all these wide receivers to help Drew Lock, and Drew Lock is his boy, this was supposed to be a better than a 3-9, 3-6, 3 whatever they are.
Got Melvin Gordon as well.
Yeah, bringing Melvin Gordon in, and Philip Lindsay was the local hero, and no one understood why they bought Melvin Gordon in. I think John Elway's going. I think Fangio's going. They're already questioning why he's still there, why he's still here. And then Drew Lock actually might survive. He might be the one survivor out of this whole thing, just because they want to see him develop with the team, with what they have, the wide receivers that they have. But I can't see Elway or Fangio making it past this year.
They're going to win one too many games again, where they're out of that top 3 quarterback race.
Yeah,
they're going to do it again. That's why they're not with Locke. They're going to do that to themselves. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're going to go full Plaxico. That's what's happening. Yeah. There we go.
Well, I mean,
what a giant mistake.
He can't evaluate quarterbacks. He can't. I mean, he's just not a good quarterback evaluator.
I feel like Locke is probably the best one that he's kind of grabbed. Locke has his do you really want a quarterback that has to fight at halftime from 25 down because he's absolutely bombed the first half? And that kind of tends to me. I put this in there who's it? Pat Shurmur? Pat Shurmur, I can say from current experience, he killed the Giants. we could talk about him being this okay offensive mind because he was all right in Minnesota, but what? He bombed in Cleveland as well, right?
Mm.
He has more like history of like being bad than what he does being good. And we can talk about Adam Gase and that ilk. He had one good year as an offensive coordinator somewhere. Doesn't matter where. Oh, Denver. Here we go.
Yeah,
But-
Peyton Manning.
And you can maybe give the credit to the 10-6 year in Miami too.
Maybe
If you're
it could.
Right.
And like, but what, he had Jay Cutler there as well, right? Like, was it? No, he didn't have Cutler. It was Tannehill.
no, that was the Tannehill year. It was Tannehill, and Tannehill got hurt at the end of the year, so Moore had to play in the playoff
that's
game, I
right. They
believe.
made that playoff push. I remember they got in. They had that. I feel like they had that Hail Mary against the Patriots as well. I think that happened. Gronk was chasing down Kenyon Drake. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was last year, I think,
No, it was
or 2 years ago. I don't think that was the Tannehill case year.
Whatever. It was a good time. I think
Always good.
Locke has to be the best quarterback he's drafted in some time. So I kind of feel like he's going to roll with Locke and just nix the coaching staff again. I think Fangio, like if you're getting 37 dropped, if you're meant to be this defensive hardhead and you have the Raiders drop 37 on you, there's a problem. You're right. We can talk about players getting injured all we like, but like Von Miller getting hurt, week 1, week 2, that sucks, right? But 37 from the Raiders, come on.
They did bring in AJ Boye, but their secondary's been atrocious. So one player's not going to make a secondary, but it also doesn't seem like he's necessarily played up to par.
They traded away. They traded Isaac Yardem away to the Giants for a 6th, and Yardem was terrible to start with. He's coming on okay. 37 from the Raiders, like come on. They had what? How many put on by the Falcons? These are two like decent teams, but
And it was all on the ground. I mean,
That's
Josh
it.
Jacobs with
That's it. Devontae Booker, your coach is a defensive coordinator, and he was amazing in Chicago, right? Locke might survive. They might not.
maybe. And I guess the thing with Locke is it does seem like his development isn't quite where he should be in year 2. Like you see, obviously Patrick Mahomes is amazing, but you see his second year in the league with barely any starts, and he already had the offensive mastery. Like he didn't need to be out there playing the games to really get it, but it does seem like the time off, like his rookie year, basically missed most of training to the first half of the season, and then basically he was activated, spent 1 week of practice, and started playing. Right, so Locke really hasn't had much time, and even this year, there's been time away from the game, and the off season in general really wasn't conducive to a young player needing to learn the game. So maybe he does get the benefit of, in 2 years, you've really had maybe 1 year's worth of actual development time. And so maybe that's, forgive him for being so far behind. Because it does seem like, the offense has been limited partially because of him. Like it doesn't seem like he can quite quarterback to the level he needs to yet either. Reading defenses specifically and those types of things. He can make all the throws clearly, but
Yeah.
We'll quickly end with this. MVP. So who's right now just over halfway through the season? Who is your MVP vote?
After yesterday, I'm going to go co-MVP Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. What? Did you see that? 3 guys were on Hopkins. 3 guys were on Hopkins. Bill O'Brien should be just like sitting down, drinking nonstop, going.
I think that's how we made the trade anyway.
I think Russell Wilson's played himself out of the conversation. Josh Allen's kind of played himself back into the conversation. I don't know.
How is it not Patrick Mahomes?
I wouldn't be mad if Aaron Donald or TJ Watt got it. If it went defensive, I would not be mad at all.
I think you're right. I'd like to see Aaron Donald win it. That would be amazing. I feel like Patrick Mahomes hasn't even got out a second year and he's just killing teams. Like what we saw yesterday from Kyler Murray in the last couple of weeks, we've seen that out of him because his team has put him in that position. I understand that. But Mahomes is doing that at the will anyway. He doesn't.
But his bar is so high, he's going to have to do something.
But that's what I'm saying. Like we're seeing Kyler Murray. I don't think. I've said this before. I had a conversation about this earlier today, and I feel like Aaron Rodgers is probably I think he's closer to Mahomes than Kyler Murray is. What Aaron Rodgers has had to do this year for that team, I think, outweighs what Murray's had to do with the Cardinals. But I still think Aaron Rodgers is a distant second at this point. Because Mahomes, we can say like he hasn't had to do it. He hasn't had to do it because he's burying teams by halftime. It's over. Like we're seeing a Hail Mary. Like if that Hail Mary doesn't connect, it's an intercept. We kind of don't talk about this today, but we're seeing things
true.
like, and we saw things yesterday. It's like, who would you rather, like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson? All right, that should be a harder discussion than who would you prefer for MVP, Mahomes or Kyler Murray. I think.
Which, to be fair, Jackson did win the MVP last year.
Yeah,
by breaking a rushing record, but
there is a very big difference in game plan from what Lamar Jackson was doing last year to this year, and I don't see much of a difference between what Mahomes is doing this year and last year, and the guy just destroyed the Super Bowl, like he destroyed San Fran and the year before. Like it's almost been 2 years of Mahomes just going ham. Like I just wanted to see where you guys were at with this. I thought maybe I was a bit. I thought I was.
I did rank them.
We're talking like Ben Roethlisberger is in 10-0. Like, we see these things and like a team that's 6-3, and Murray for those 3 losses he didn't perform. Roethlisberger is getting it done at 10-0.
Well, Roethlisberger's defense is helping him get it done at 10-0 because that Dallas game, I wouldn't say Roethlisberger got it done.
I understand. It's going to come down to like those next 6 weeks for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Roethlisberger's like walking through this at some point. He looks like he did like 2 or 3 years ago. Like he looks amazing. He has that road bend where he looks a little, where did I leave my car keys? And he has that in him. But he's still getting through it, and he's spreading it around to guys that like last year he didn't really have a connection because he wasn't playing.
Yeah, but they also have, Juju and Deontay and Chase Claypool, like 3 huge guys and Eric Ebron to catch the ball.
He only had them he only had Deontay and Juju for half a game last year. That's a brand new team.
Yeah, but they're good.
Oh, well, I mean, he had Bell and Brown before they went bad either.
I mean, he always has really good peripheral players. He always has a good supporting cast. Whereas Aaron Rodgers, you can't say that. He has Devontae Adams and the other guys.
Oh, come on.
I would say, just between Rodgers and Ben, and right now Rodgers has the much better offensive line.
For sure.
Yeah.
Look, I
David.
As I've been saying, like, if Rodgers to me, I'm just saying, Rodgers to me is a distant second, and he's had a hell of a year. Mahomes doesn't have. It's hard to not think he's not the MVP because of what he's doing to teams by halfway through a game. He looks untouchable at this point.
And 1 or 2 interceptions, he's not been turning the ball over at all. And I mean, as Gladys said, basically Russell Wilson played himself out of the MVP conversation by throwing so many interceptions over the last 2 weeks. Now, again, the one thing, Lamar Jackson won it last year as a unanimous decision, probably because he broke the quarterback rushing record. If Kyler Murray right now on pace for, I think it's 4,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards, or to surpass both. No quarterback's ever done that. If he does that and the Cardinals are in the playoffs, I think it's Murray probably pretty close to unanimous. But that's the thing. If the Cardinals lose, that could be what sinks his MVP chances. The Cardinals aren't a playoff team. If they the street are at the top of the NFC West right now, but
they are.
They're only a game up on the Bears, who are out of the playoffs. So there's still so much of the season left. If the Cardinals lose out, then I think Murray's chances go. But if he can get them in the playoffs and continue to do it,
it's a 3-way tie in the West. They're all at 6-3.
Okay, 6-3. Yeah.
So, that's where they're at.
But I think it's Murray. But I was on the full press. So we do a full press coverage, a Sunday night reaction show, and we asked us to rank them, and I ranked Murray, Mahomes 2. I think I said Allen 3, maybe Tom Brady. I'm not sure, but I think you both named them. Murray, Mahomes, I think right now should be the 2 favorites for the MVP. If Russell Wilson can kind of rebound and stop turning the ball over, he gets back in, I think. But that's how I would kind of see it right now.
Mahomes is averaging.
There's too many good quarterbacks play this year. It's not going to a defensive player, unfortunately, and as cool as that would be.
Mahomes is averaging 300 yards a game, 25 touchdowns, 1 intercept. they're 8-1. Like I'm not sure what he has to do. I know Kyler Murray's rushing like a lunatic. I mean, geez, I don't know if Mahomes is on track for 5,000 yards, 55 touchdowns, that would also be hard to pass up. If he's at nearly 3,000 yards now, where's he at? About 2,700 at the moment. He's going to hit another 1,800, 1,900, give or take. So 44, maybe. Maybe Murray. I don't know. I kind of feel like Mahomes hasn't put a foot wrong, and he hasn't put a foot wrong in 2 years. And this year he's looked pretty damn good too. And it feels like everyone's pushing Kyler because he can run a little. I don't know. Daniel Jones ran for 80 yards and he nearly scored a touchdown. No, ran for another 40 with a touchdown.
But again, as we talked about, you need to win games to get MVP. Although the Jets could make the playoffs. So.
What are you talking about? We've only got 3 less wins than the Cardinals. They're not that good. What are you talking about?
That's double, though, right? Like, they've got double the wins.
Listen, we're 2 wins undefeated. Our season started 2 weeks ago. We're 2 games undefeated with the bye. We had Cincinnati. You watch. Giants will knock off Seattle. You watch, I'm telling you. They'll knock off Seattle. You laughed at it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I guess if Russ keeps turning it over, maybe. And I mean, the Giants have been, as a defense, turning the ball over a lot. So
I wasn't going to say Daniel Jones MVP because he hasn't had a turnover in 2 weeks. But Russell Wilson's kind of turning it over a little bit more for my liking. And Jones hasn't done it in 2 games. And, Washington and Philly.
I mean, to be fair, Dan,
I don't want to say that he was flawless 2 weeks in a row, but hey.
They got the wins. That's all that matters. And as you know, speaking of wins, Dan, to your credit, talk about Ben Roethlisberger in the case. I do wonder if Tomlin, as coach of the year, Fitzpatrick as defensive player of the year, I wonder if that's the individual hardware the Steelers end up winning with the best record in the NFL, and they're not going to give Ben the MVP just because of that. Because okay, you've got arguably one of the best coaches. As Gladys mentioned, the defense.
I'm going to stand up for my girl Gladys here. How Mike Tomlin didn't win Coach of the Year last year is beyond me. 8-8 with Mason Rudolph? Yeah. Are you kidding me? 8-8 with Mason Rudolph? Come on.
If the Dolphins make the playoffs,
Yep. Flores that's probably Tomlin's only competition right now is probably Flores.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Ooh.
I was going to say Nicorettes, but that's not what it is. Not a sponsor. Nick Ortez. Nick Ortez. I think that's 2 separate names. Wow, I'm reading. Says, what's up? That's a lot of effort just to say that. I'm back to the pencil comment. I'm sorry.
I've been looking at that for the past
When's Matt
hour.
Patricia getting fired? I guess end of the season?
That's the same thing. Well, I'll go back to the Adam Gase quandary. And we can see it with Matt Nagy, obviously, and it looks like an Adam Thielen touchdown. There we go.
Yeah.
6-0. Thielen touchdown. There we go.
Thielen touchdown.
Listen, while there is, and I'm surprised, to an extent, I'm surprised that Houston did it, right? While there is no one in the stands and there is no one there to boo you, all you're dealing with is online pressure and it's not like you're losing a lot of money from people not being in stands. While the perception of people not being there, it would have been worse last week if the Jets had played Monday Night Football. There was 70,000, 80,000 people at MetLife losing their mind at Adam Gase. That would be harder for the owners to ignore. I don't think who's the guy that owns the Jets? I don't think he's on Twitter. So I don't think he really cares, right? So I don't think John Mara is on Twitter. So I don't think he cares if the Giants online at 3 and people can get mad online and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is the teams are at a loss financially now anyway. So if Adam Gase is going to get them 0-16 and Trevor Lawrence, I would not care if that happens. We can talk about that with he gave up play calling to Dale Loggins, right? The Jets. The Bears, he's given up play calling to Bill Lazor. That seems to be the way to go. So
it didn't help Dan Quinn though. He didn't. Actually Bill O'Brien reached over play calling before he got fired. But the truth is with Bill O'Brien though, I still say Bill O'Brien didn't get fired. Bill O'Brien, the GM, is what got fired. Like if it was some other GM messing up that team, Bill O'Brien would still be coaching them right now.
Two things with that. The Falcons, again, they're one game behind Chicago. So the Falcons are still technically playoff contenders at this point in the NFC because of how bad it is. Seahawks are 6-3, right? Falcons are 4 and I don't know if they had their bye this week. So they're what, 4 and 5, I think. So
The Falcons are 3 and 6.
there you go. So they're not out. Like they're in. They're very much in the hunt still. Like, and the Falcons can put up 35, 40 points a game if they want. So they're very much in. So like I get getting rid of Dan Quinn because they were going through this. We've been over this before. They were going through the same thing they did last year. They started slow and they finished strong. So I understand if they wanted to see if that was going to change, but I don't know. I don't see the point.
I think with Dan Quinn is that it wasn't even just the last 2 years. I mean, that's kind of been a thing throughout. Starting slow, kind of finishing hot. So I think that the team is just really impatient. Like, fourth time we've done this.
You
And
go back
it's
to
kind of slow starts at this playoff game. So if Dan Quinn they start slow under, that's I guess unacceptable to a certain point.
We can go back around to the Matt Patricia thing though, because if there is no one really in stadiums to boo Matt Patricia, and they're going to win, they'll win a few more games. They could go, say they go 6-10, but they're going to do the same thing every year. Hey, Matt Stafford, I brought it up earlier. Matt Stafford, it's that time of year where they put him on IR for the year. Kenny Golladay, well, you know what? our season's over. We don't want to risk your NFL. Even though Kenny Golladay is a free agent, I think, at the end of the year. New York's a good place to be, Kenny. No worries. But we're talking about a team. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to hand not Daboll. Who's the OC in Detroit? I don't think it's Brian Daboll. No,
Darrell Bevel?
Darrell Bevel, the former Seattle guy, right? Daboll's in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Mistake. What are you going to hand it over to him? Darrell Bevel, like the DC's Patricia, right? You're not going to hand it back to him. So what? The play calling's already in the offensive coordinator's hands. Patricia doesn't really have much to do with that. So to get rid of the head coach, it can't make sense. So at this point, like you may as well, especially the.
This all started because I made an offhand comment for no reason. Sorry, everyone.
I gotta stick up for me, right? This whole Matt Patricia thing. I see the thing here. You haven't got rid of it. Thank you, Kyle. But
I keep bringing it back up because it's my favorite comment.
They're the worst, Kyle.
I am sorry. I don't like Matt Patricia, so I think that's why I don't like.
I'd be surprised I'd be surprised if we see any more coaching firings. I don't think there's a need. Like half these teams at 4 and 6 is still a chance. So, like I kind of feel like there's no need to get rid of guys. There we go. Foles throwing it again. I don't know who that.
Of course he is. Thanks, play-by-play Dan.
Lamar Miller. That's Lamar
there.
Lamar Miller action. There we go. Reception for 10. There you go.
Nice. And I think some cryptic, not so cryptic messages from Detroit ownership at this before the season was the expectation for Quinn and Patricia was playoffs or you're gone. So at this point, it seems like that was the plan. Like they were never going to replace the midseason unless it was absolute horrible. But I mean, they're winning games, right? So yeah, you're right. Patricia's. It does. Does he? Is it possible for him to coach well enough to get that team close to the playoffs, but not in, and he saves his job? I kind of get the sense that if the Lions aren't in the playoffs, Patricia's gone, and probably Bob Quinn as well.
Okay. There's going to be a lot of people that clean house like that, and that's a given, I think. But we're talking about week 10. I think if those teams that were out of the playoff hunt had done it already,
clearly the Jets aren't firing Gase. Like that's again, why would you? If he's the worst coach, then he's the best coach for them right this year.
His answer is the quarterback that my GM drafted that's no longer here drafted a quarterback that's always hurt. He got mono. That's a self-inflicted wound, right? Like that's what Adam Gase can literally come out and say. He's like, the quarterback, you got me. And that's the same thing within reason for Matt Nagy. He can walk away going, hey, listen, I came into a place that drafted Mitch Trubisky, not the other way around. I didn't draft him. You guys drafted him.
Yeah.
I said I'd come in and try.
Although there was talking, the Chiefs were looking at him, and he was really impressed with Trubisky, but that could also be just coach talk coming in to pump up the guy you're about to coach, right? So,
Listen, the Giants were in on Patrick Mahomes and settled on to Davis Webb. So what coaches say around draft time is another thing. Thank you, Ben McAdoo. But it's also, Jerry Reese.
Don't miss him in Green Bay, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, whatever. But I'm just saying, like these, like Matt Nagy and Gase could literally, they could say like these weren't my quarterbacks, these weren't my guys, and I just did what the GM told me to do, and here we are again in a year's time asking why these guys haven't been fighting. There's no in the stadiums, there's no pressure. It's a weird year. There was no off season. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe.
What did happen though, we went really far over, about a half hour over. But thanks for everyone to stick with. Thanks Dan and Gladys for sticking around and having a great conversation. Gladys, was there anything you wanted to tell before leaving? Any final ideas? Any rants that you need to get off your chest?
No, so I did rant, but it will come out tomorrow in the.
I want to hear it now. I want to hear it now.
Not getting a target until the second half. Are you kidding me? I don't care if Jalen Ramsey was on him. He didn't even look his way until the second half.
Get him,
Gladys. Oh my God. I was like, my dogs were like under tables and stuff. I'm yelling at the TV. Not until the second half. What is wrong with Russell Wilson? That is what I want to know. Who broke
him? Yeah. I guess it was the Cardinals when they beat him a couple weeks ago.
And they play. Isn't that the Thursday night game? Who's the Thursday night game? Is it?
Yeah,
Seattle
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my maybe an correct course there, but I wonder if the volume you're yelling at Gladys at Wilson was an unlimited volume or not.
What?
I got one for you. I've got something I want to get off my chest. Doug Peterson, you fool. Listen, man, you were an Evan Ingram alligator arm catch away from losing to the Giants twice. You want to come out and blame penalties? Oh, well, your team lacks discipline. Well, that's a coaching problem, man. Well, we didn't convert on third downs. Well, you got Carson Wentz. You just paid him a lot of money. No, the Giants absolutely rated you twice. You got lucky the first time around. None of this. None of this. The Giants were better. You got out-coached by a rookie special team coach. You absolute fool. Like, no, like, we're talking about – I said it last week. The Giants aren't good, but they're not that bad. This team is building. They're going to get Xavier McKinney back after the bye, and they go Cincinnati. I think they got Dallas week 17. 6 wins will get you through. The Giants are the only team that looks like they're close to do it. And you want to sit there and talk about how you guys looked at a game plan, and we know how the Giants – you knew nothing, man. You guys got smoked. And you got lucky to get 17 points. Lucky because you got a breakaway Boston Scott touchdown. You have got to be kidding me. That was your best play. Oh, we got our players back. We got our receivers back. They were terrible. James Bradbury, the signing of the season, 21 yards in one game on this guy that you pulled off the street. But Travis Fulgham, no, garbage. You guys were trash. And you drew with Cincinnati, man, and you're going to talk about how the Giants were lucky. Get out of here. You garbage, man. Trash. Philip Fraudulent is back. That's what they are. Fraudulent.
I can't wait for the Back Row Giants pod this week. I feel like it's just gonna be like 20 minutes, 30 minutes of just that.
Everyone needs to tune in.
No, you just sit there and this guy, like, how do you listen, man, you still give the dude some credit. Like, they absolutely destroyed you. Game 1 in Philly, you got lucky. Evan Ingram drops that catch. Giants take a knee. It's over. Carson Wentz pulls one out of his backside. You get the win. Okay, fair play. Giants didn't make excuses. Philly win on their day. We absolutely destroyed you. The two best teams in the East, I'm not even joking, Washington and the Giants. That's it.
And the Giants have they did sweep the Washington.
Yes,
right?
Washington. Giants, Washington. But Washington yesterday looked okay with Alex Smith. And to be fair, we talk about Philadelphia throwing it to guys that aren't, we got Alex Smith had Cam Sims, Steven Sims, Dontrell Inman. Are you kidding me? Logan Thomas was a quarterback.
Isaiah Wright?
Isaiah Wright? You got to talk about, you guys have dropped all that draft capital. Nelson Aguilar, bomb. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, bomb. Jalen Rager, not healthy. Your best two players are guys you picked off the street, and Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward. You have got to be kidding me. Like, you want to talk about a team that like says that they do things? My God, you guys are just garbage, fraudulent. Philadelphia just trash. Washington will smash them. They beat them the first game. Washington. Dwayne Haskins did you in.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a Haskins game too.
Dwayne Haskins did you in, and rookie Joe Burrow took you guys to a draw. And you kind of deflect away from like penalties. Come on. Daniel Jones hard counted you in the first game, and he got you again. Hard counts from Daniel Jones. That guy. Are you kidding?
No, Michael Hicks with wrong words for Wentz. Their best QB is Hurts. That one hurts a little.
Oh, Kyle, you're on a roll today.
Thank you.
Puns.
Dad jokes over here. I just can't deal with this. It's just they're fraudulent, man. Their idol is a fake boxer on the top of the steps. That's what they look to. They are the worst. Sylvester Stallone played a character, and he's been immortalized in front of a museum. And that's what they have. Fake, fraudulent, false idols. That's what they look. Garbage.
I think we're gonna really take a head out here on that note. But again, Gladys, Dan, appreciate you both.
I mean, hold that in for a day. I mean, hold that in for a full day. Hold that in. Just stewing on that one. God damn it, man.
After we stop recording, Dan's still going to be ranting. It's going to be off. It won't matter. You'll be able to hear it. Anyone in the New York, basically anyone on the East Coast will be able to hear him.
I got to take this temperament to put my kids to sleep.
Get out of your system now, I guess. Yeah. So again, glad you both joined. Again, shout out to Jim for joining us. It seems like so long ago. And yeah. Anyone want to plug anything? Twitter handles?
I guess I can plug the Back Row Giants podcast. It's going to be coming out now. That'll be fun. That'll be out the next
Sneak
day.
preview.
My God, that's fraudulent. But articles for the Back Row Fantasy Show, Fantasy Impact, and for Going for Two game plan for the week. They normally come out Wednesdays and Fridays, give or take. Yeah, they're a bit of fun. Oh, and I'm at the B-League Says. There you go. And our Back Row Giants. Forget all about it.
Gladys at Never Enough GLT.
Yeah.
Anything you'd plug?
And on Twitter, Never Enough GLT, coming out maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. I don't know. My rant about week 10 and my good. Alex Smith was good. And then coming out Thursday, it starts and sit column for Going for Two. And then waiver wire tomorrow on Pro Football Mania, and Fake Pigskin defense on Thursday. You guys, good luck on your fantasy teams, unless I'm playing against you. Everyone, push Mooney. We need him to get 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, and then the Minnesota defense to get 20 points. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but that's what I need because my fantasy week sucks.
A couple of them. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching so much. We will see you next week. Bye. Bye, Kyle.
I'm Kyle Senna at Senna Says. Bye, everyone.